A new drop-in event is launching here in Shaftesbury for workers who have ADHD. If you're in business, Alice Perry, who works in digital marketing and at Shaftesbury Wines, and Semley voiceover artist Natalie Cooper hope the relaxed space at the Grosvenor Arms Hotel will help you connect and share experiences and support other people in their work lives. Alice says it's the first time something like this has been tried in town. There's a need for it, and she hopes the first session in February will make a real difference.
So a lot of people with ADHD can find kind of traditional business networking a bit of an exhausting performance. For me, so I've got ADHD and autism. For me, I quite like traditional business networking because it's a structured, time-boxed interaction, but I also find it very, very exhausting. And so we thought that people might like to meet quite informally and without pressure with others who understand the kind of good and bad and strengths and challenges of being in business and having ADHD, whether they're freelancers, whether they're self-employed people, whether they're running their own business of any size.
It's a difficult thing, I guess, bringing people together because it's not one size fits all. It's like saying, I don't know, language skills, isn't it? Everybody's so different.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And that's why, we Natalie and I came up with the idea of ADHD Business Collective as a name. And we wanted to make it kind of very loose and unstructured and not kind of, this is tips and tricks, or, you've got Google for that, or kind of, everybody pitches themselves. It's a couple of hours in a nice, warm, cozy place with nice coffee. You can bring your laptop and just do some work if having other people around helps you to get on. You can kind of have a chat. You can, some people might know each other, some people might not. But it's sort of deliberately unstructured and unpressured because, as you say, there is, people come in all flavours, and that's true within neurodivergence as it is within everything.
So you can only talk about your own experiences, you've clearly stated, but is there anything that you think is a challenge for you? Are you held back from where you might want to be because of your ADHD or autism?
I suppose it's difficult to say exactly what you would do if you had a standard issue brain. And certainly, Natalie has had a very long, very successful career with ADHD, and there's a bit of research that says that many ADHD people tend to thrive in self-employment and where they're setting their own rules and making their own ecosystems. And so that's kind of one side of the coin. But then there's also, and this is true of anyone working on mainly on their own or working for themselves, it can be a bit lonely, or you can, have days where you just faff about and don't get started. And sort of being with other people who can relate to that, or, where you say, I desperately want and need to do this task, but I just can't activate. It makes you feel less strange if you say that to a group of people and they all go, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, rather than, well, if you need to do it, why don't you just get on and do it?
So Natalie, your partner in crime with this, is a voiceover artist, a successful voiceover. You'll have heard her on adverts on the telly and radio. You won't have known it's a woman sitting in Semley in a recording studio doing this, and she doesn't have to necessarily meet the people who want her to read the stuff. It just gets sent to her. You've had a successful career with online social media work, which I guess you can also do on your own in a self-employed way without having to interact face-to-face with people. But the other side of the coin for you, you've got very much a front-facing role in Shaftesbury Wines, the company firm, if you like. So do you find that a challenge, switching between the two very distinct ways of operating, which a lot of people might find it hard making that switch?
Yeah, I mean, my non-shop career is more sort of content design and copy and writing, and I also have, a not at the desk, seeing people and context, and being live and being on, and I love it. I absolutely love it, but I do find it exhausting, and it is a performance because I have to put the mask on to an extent. and be that person that the public expects you to be. But for me, like with ADHD, I like doing a few different things. I like that I don't, go to the same office every day, or I don't, it's not every day's the same. Having days that are different is really important to me. And I think with Natalie as well, as you say, she's had a very, very long, very successful voiceover career. But she's recently trained as an ADHD coach in order, basically because she realised that all her fellow voiceovers, or a very high number of them, had ADHD, whether they knew it or not. And that a lot of people in creative industries and in, working on their own and who are, making something and producing something tend to be neurodivergent, or certainly have some neurodivergent traits to them. And I think that novelty, we've got brains that are wired for interest rather than prioritize, the thing that needs to be in tomorrow. It's a challenge, but it's also a strength in many ways.
Well, it's about the brain wiring, as you say, isn't it? And the brain, I suppose, is like one of those colour charts you get in a homeware place, and that some people's are a little bit more taupe or magnolia, other people's are a bit more sort of vibrant flamingo coloured. So it depends on where the scale goes. So, I mean, you can look at people's strengths and weaknesses depending on whether they're neurodiverse or not. What's your superpower?
Personally, my superpower is probably being very good at researching, being very sort of granular about things, and being very determined about finding things out if they interest me, and that being wired for interest, that if I am interested in something, I will be completely wholehearted with it, but I can't fake it. And I can't just sort of dial it in or do work that I don't enjoy. Which can be a frustration sometimes. I couldn't have a career that was very, very well paid, but that I just thought, this doesn't mean anything to me, don't care, not interested.
Often, not always, but often people with autism are quite heart on sleeve, aren't they? Say it like it is.
Women can come across a bit differently because they can mask very well. And if where you, I mean, again, I can only kind of talk from my own knowledge, and it may not be perfect knowledge, but the stereotype that we have of autism, sort of either the boy who's into trains, the train boy autism, or the sort of Rain Man, extremely intelligent but no social skills autism, where we see it in women and where we see it co-occurring with ADHD, it can look quite different. And certainly in women and girls with both ADHD and autism, or with either, there tends to be a high degree of masking and of sort of observing social cues. And, for example, I sort of am constantly thinking, what would a human do? What would a person do in this situation? And thinking, I can't just do it because I have to think, but what would a person do? What's a normal human thing to do? So that's quite, that takes up quite a lot of energy.
Interesting. There's no such thing as normal, I can tell you that, answering phones at a radio station all the time. So it just depends. I mean, the point I was making, it wasn't so much that kind of more Rain Man approach like you suggested. It was more, and it's only learned experience. People I've met who are autistic will get straight to the point.
Maybe there's a sort of forthrightness when you're diagnosed as an adult, as I was with both, and as Natalie was with just the ADHD. You have to unpick what is you as a person and what is a mask, or what is something you've portrayed to the world. And I suppose, yes, that there, maybe if I just was whoever the person is, it might just come across as quite blunt or forthright or whatever. But it's quite fascinating thinking, what traits are mine, what traits are things that I've picked up to live in the world, or what's a combination of the two.
It's going to be an interesting dynamic, isn't it, when everyone gets together?
Yeah, well, I think it would be surprising, or it may be surprising, to find out how many local business owners or local creatives and entrepreneurs either have an ADHD diagnosis, are pursuing an ADHD diagnosis, or recognise those traits in themselves. It's not always a straightforward process to get diagnosed, and it can take quite a long time. And there's quite a lot of compelling reasons why someone might not go forward and say, okay, I want to actually get a diagnosis, but I view myself as having ADHD because I see the traits in myself. And ultimately, there's no, if you see those traits in yourself and you, come along to groups, or you start, using various techniques that work for people with ADHD, and you find they work for you, well, it's not, nobody's going to check your paperwork on the door. Like, learning more about what works for your own unique brain is never a bad thing, whatever label you put on it.
Alice Perry talking about the new Shaftesbury ADHD Business Collective, which will run on the first Wednesday of the month from 10 till noon in the Snug at the Grosvenor Arms Hotel. If you'd like to talk to Alice beforehand, you can email her, aliceperry@live.co.uk. If you didn't get those details, then give us a shout at Alf.